Minority Report, directed by Steven Spielberg, based on a short story by Philip K. Dick, starring Tom Cruise, Colin Farrell, Samantha Morton, and Max von Sydow. I've seen this film once, ages ago, and I've just had a refresher, and honestly, I'm surprised at how well it holds up after almost 20 years now. The story takes place in 2054. Washington, D.C. Police Department is using three precogs, people who can predict the future, to stop murders before they happen. The precogs get visions of those murders with some images and sounds that the police can review, as well as the names of the victim and the killer. Tom Cruise plays John, the chief of the pre-crime division, as it's called, and he's doing a stellar job. For the 6 years of the experiment that the experiment has been running, murder has basically ceased to exist in the city as a crime, and there are talks of extending the program to the entire country as it's considered to be completely infallible. But one day the precogs have a vision of a murder that is supposed to take place in 36 hours, and the killer is John. He's obviously stunned by this revelation, as not only did he not plan a murder, but he also doesn't have a clue as to who the victim is. He's never met the man. So he ends up going on the run, trying to avoid his former team, from trying to escape arrest, while also figuring out what's really going on here and trying to clear his name. So the most impressive thing for me probably is how, despite the fact that this is most definitely an action film, first and foremost, filled with Tom Cruise doing Tom Cruise stuff, it never really sacrifices the story component and the philosophical debates that surround it. There is, of course, the central question of the morality of pre-crime. Is it fair to arrest people for crimes that they have not actually committed? Is the fact that they were just about to do them enough? And on another level, is it possible that the prediction itself is what causes the crime to happen in some cases? As the movie goes on, it begins to look like that is the case for John. It's a causality paradox. Because of the clues that he learned from the vision of the murder, he actually gets closer to committing the murder itself and therefore causing the vision to exist in the first place. The paradoxical nature of those visions also extends to the film's ending, which I will not spoil, but I think it was done quite brilliantly. Then we also have the critique of surveillance and government's increasing efforts to keep tabs on all of its citizens at all times, and within this theme of personal freedom, the three precogs also come into play themselves. Is it fair to use them as basically machines and deny them regular lives? So there's definitely a lot going on in the philosophical aspect of the film, but as I said, it is primarily an action film. There are multiple exciting set pieces with John on the run, avoiding the policemen that chase him. My favorite was probably the very first scene when they try to apprehend him in an alleyway, and he's trying to escape, but it's also very clear that he's going out of his way to not hurt his former teammates. He's ensuring that he doesn't kill or injure anybody too seriously, which I thought was a nice touch in terms of building character. The special effects are great. Some of them have aged out, notably the car jumping sequence at the beginning of the film, but some of them look amazingly to this day, like the spider robots designed to infiltrate buildings and identify people. I was personally not the greatest fan of the movie's color palette. It has an incredibly desaturated look, devoid of any warm colors, instead opting for grey and blue and silver. I thought it was a little too much, but apparently it was very deliberate on the part of Spielberg and Kaminsky, who was the DP. I was also thinking how overall the movie looks fairly regular. I mean, you have all these futuristic cars and watches and computer screens and all of that, but then the buildings and the interiors and the people's clothes, they look very much like they do today. And I thought that was slightly less adventurous than I would like from a story set in such a dystopian future. If you think about the setting, it would make sense to make it more cyberpunk, more like Blade Runner, which coincidentally was written by the same author. But I think maybe this was deliberate as well to make the film more relatable to us, to make it seem like this is not some high concept science fiction. This is an extremely near future, something just waiting around the corner. In any case, it's not something that diminished my enjoyment of the movie after all. So overall, I think it's incredibly well done, no matter how you look at it. As an action film, Tom Cruise vehicle, it works. As a gritty crime mystery, borrowing from film noir in some ways, it also works. And as an excuse to have a discussion about philosophy and ethics, it works just as well. Great movie all around.